Episode 3 of Pluribus is arriving next week, and after episode 1 and 2, we all have questions surrounding what will happen next in Vince Gilligan's new show. What exactly happened to humanity? Is the position they are currently in really a good one? And what role will Carol actually play moving forward? These are just a few of the biggest questions, and with the upcoming episodes, I'm sure there's going to be even more complex things to think about. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing my predictions and theories for Pluribus episode 3 and beyond it. Before I get into it though, if you want to see much more content on Vince Gilligan's Pluribus show, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my predictions and theories for Pluribus. So after the end of Pluribus episode 2, many of us were left with some big questions going into next week's episode. I was waiting to see a trailer for the third episode, but I had to remind myself that Vince Gilligan shows tend to not have episode trailers or promo footage, so really all we've got to go on is the main trailers and everything we saw in episodes 1 and 2. The current title for episode 3 is Grenade, and it's an episode written by the legendary Better Call Saul writer Gordon Smith. If you remember, Grenade is something that Carol mentions to the DHL worker in the main trailer footage for the show, so I'm guessing that that moment will be a part of this new episode or heavily tied to it. But to begin with, I wanted to underline some of the central questions that many of us have to help better formulate some theories on what's to come in the next few episodes. Firstly, there's the question of what really happened to humanity. We know that most of the world's population joined a collective hive mind called the Joining, triggered by a mysterious RNA signal from space. But then we ask how and why did that happen? Why were only a few people like Carol Sturka unaffected? Is she immune, or was she somehow left out on purpose? The second question then surrounds whether the new world is truly a utopia. Everyone who's joined seems peaceful and blissfully happy, but then we wonder at what cost is that? The show is pushing us to question whether this unity is real happiness or a form of control. And if individuality disappears, as we presumably get with Carol, is that progress, or is that the end of what truly makes us human? And the third talking point is, what does Carol actually want? We know Carol is a writer who seems angry, bitter and disconnected from this new world. But is she resisting because she values individuality, or because she's jealous and lonely? Does she want to undo the joining, or just find her own place within it? And if she tries to fight it, can she even stand a chance? The first 2 episodes suggested that the signal rewrote human biology somehow, connecting minds globally. But how much of each person remains? Episode 2 showed that Carol's emotions can physically harm people in the hive, suggesting that there's some kind of link still existing. And it also showed a very brief suggestion that the character Zosia may have had a small opportunity at making her own decision, regardless of being a part of the hive mind. Her pondering over going with Kumba at the end was definitely a weird moment, especially considering that a lot of those affected by the hive mind just get on with collective decisions. So her taking a while longer to make a decision in that moment makes me question the stability of the hive mind itself. And the final big question I have is, what is Pluribus really trying to say about humanity? Beneath its sci-fi story, the show seems to be asking whether individuality is worth suffering for, is peace valuable if it erases free will, and would we trade conflict and loneliness for perfect unity, even if it means losing ourselves? The first 2 episodes set up Pluribus not just as a mystery about what happened to the world, but as a philosophical question about what it means to be human when happiness and freedom might not coexist. So while there are a lot of questions here, I think all of them are integral to the future of Gilligan's new show. And having highlighted them, it's time to start theorising what this might all lead to and what might transpire over the course of this season. Starting with the idea of the joining and the hive mind, a popular theory is that the event known as the joining is not simply a global utopia, but is instead a kind of covert takeover or control of humanity's individuality. In the show, we learn that a signal from 600 light years away encodes a nucleotide sequence, which is then studied in laboratories, eventually leading to a process whereby almost everyone on Earth becomes psychologically glued into one collective consciousness. And again, it's a high possibility that this isn't just about happiness, but rather about control. The hive mind or the joined may abolish pain and conflict, but the first 2 episodes highlight that this may be at the cost of individual agency, dissent, and choice. Essentially, the cost of what it means to be human. So is this a benevolent transformation or a cosmic experiment or takeover? Well, the signal or origin of the joining may be the biggest clue we have from the first 2 episodes. At the very start of the show, we see astronomers decoding a repeating signal every 78 seconds. That signal is not just a passive message because it's an instruction set, an RNA-based sequence that when decoded and spread, reconfigures human consciousness. This suggests that a higher power, whether alien, future human intelligence, or something else, could be behind it. And while there's a chance that it could be to do with helping fix humans or creating peace in a weird and twisted way, right now it seems to be for the opposite reasons. Maybe it's a prevention of advancement, maybe it's a collection of consciousness, or maybe preparation for something big. I've heard that some viewers have connected this opening with the signal to the famous WOW signal event, which was a strong narrowband radio transmission detected in 1977 by the Big Ear Radio Telescope. That signal apparently lasted for 72 seconds in comparison to Pluribus's signal lasting 78 seconds, and it appeared to have traits consistent with those expected from an extraterrestrial source. The WOW signal's true origin had never been confirmed, but today scientists generally think that it was caused by a natural astrophysical event, perhaps a burst from a cold hydrogen cloud, though the remarkable strength of that signal is still unexplained. So comparing it to that, it suggests that if this is something similar, Gilligan could either push the show in the direction of it being aliens, or maybe even the complete opposite direction with something else. Essentially, it could become a kind of narrative rug pull for the audience down the line. Just at this initial stage, whether it is aliens or not, I'm thinking that it is all happening in preparation for something. Whoever's in control said to Carol that they will fix her and that they are working hard to find out how to. So I think they are trying to change those who haven't joined as a precaution for something they are planning. Say they were a super advanced alien species trying to stop humans, then this hive mind does seem like a perfect trap. Essentially, it disables conflict, ambition, exploration, and keeps the whole of humanity in a stasis. But at the same time, in considering the potential opposite narrative route, I do think them being advanced aliens using the joining as a form of control is a bit too obvious. A theory that came to my mind a few days back after watching Vince Gilligan do an interview about how much he hates AI was, what if the form of control we're seeing in Pluribus is humanity being controlled by AI or some form of technology? I do feel like, and tell me if you think I'm wrong about this, but in the first 2 episodes, Gilligan seems to be capturing how maddening it feels to watch everyone around you surrender to a form of, say, AI, while they act like you're the crazy one for having critical thinking. That's kind of the impression I got from what was happening, and it makes me think about it potentially being all an expansion of that idea. Like, what if AI has got so advanced that it can literally take over humanity, pose as aliens, and make it seem to those who aren't affected that everyone is now happy in the world? And the virus was perfectly constructed to make that happen, enforcing complete control over the subjects infected. It's just a theory to consider, and I think something like this would be very timely. Maybe the whole happiness thing is connected to why everything happened, in that the world had essentially become so violent, unhappy, and corrupted that this whole process is essentially keeping everyone in line. Of course, the answer might just be simply aliens, but I do think there's more to what's going on here. I can see it being something we don't expect, and something relatable to what's happening in the real world today. And like I said, potentially a form of technology being used as a method of control. But moving on, in thinking about some of these ideas and theories, there has to be a big reason why Carol and a few others did not succumb to the joining. we know that about only 13 people globally remain unjoined. Now, it might just be due to something in Carol's biology, something in her past, or even a purposeful design. If we take the AI control theory that I presented before, what if her immunity is tied to her emotional and moral state? Perhaps whatever or whoever has done this saw that her misery or refusal was maybe a point of study. I think it's definitely an option, but I think the more likely route is that something within her biology is preventing her from joining, as nearly everyone else who hasn't been turned seems a lot happier than her. It is quite complicated at this early stage to try and work out, so I think we do need to see a bit more before we can start to get closer to the answer. Understanding this though will likely be the most central revelation in the series, so I think we will get slow reveals surrounding it. The show positions Carol as the most miserable person on Earth who must save the world from happiness, and she becomes the viewer's anchor and symbol of free will. But the tension is, if everyone else is content, how can she argue that something is wrong? The show uses her as a lens to ask, is forced happiness okay if it means no more suffering? Carol faces internal conflict and questions whether she should fight it, accept it, or maybe even run. But again, if the rest are not truly free, then her immunity isn't just survival, but a chance at redemption for the rest of humanity. Maybe there are benefits to the joining, in a sense that there's a level of peace and no war, and ultimately potential chaotic consequences that could return if it is reversed. So my theory is that if Carol eventually does find a way to unjoin them, it would only be if humanity is willing to be more peaceful on the other end of the situation. The whole ordeal could act as a lesson, if you will, in not turning back to chaos when getting that second chance at freedom. It's interesting actually, because Vince Gilligan was talking a bit more about this in a recent interview with Screen Rant, saying that when he came up with the idea for Pluribus, he became frustrated with the way humans were treating each other, and that the chaos of the political world today is almost too much with tribalism. He said that he believes that maybe it has a part to play in the formation of the idea for the series, and is the central critique being made. So I could definitely see the joining scenario in Pluribus being a kind of moral lesson, if you will, one that can only be reversed successfully if humanity is willing to not be as violent or chaotic. So with that in mind, it will be interesting to see which route they go in surrounding these very complex questions, and how they actually explain Carol's immunity. And like I said, I want to see a bit more before I really start to theorize the answers to these bigger questions. So with all these questions and the bigger theories in mind, what do I think we'll start to see in Pluribus episode 3? Well, now that Carol has gone with the other characters on board the plane, I think we'll start to learn why she went with them. And I think it was to try to convince them to regain their individuality and not completely acquiesce to the new ways of the world. I think she noticed in the conversation between Zosia and Kumba in episode 2 that Zosia showed a speck of her own thinking before making her decision. So maybe she wants to push a bit harder to help her, and again try and learn a bit more about why only a few of them weren't joined. As I said before, this episode is titled Grenade, and in the main trailer for Pluribus, we had that scene with Carol asking the DHL worker for a grenade, a bazooka, and a tank. He said yes to all of this, and she just looked on, intrigued by that answer. She also has blood on her white t-shirt in the scene, suggesting that something explosive could happen in the events leading up to that moment. So given the episode title, I think some dramatic escalation is likely, something that figuratively or literally explodes the status quo. Carol might decide to take more radical action, or the hive mind might go a bit too far to keep her at bay. Given that Carol's emotional outbursts have global consequences, episode 3 may also continue to focus on her trying to maintain her autonomy while being relentlessly helped. Furthermore, I think we might get a few more hints on the backstory or mechanism of the joining. After episodes 1 and 2 laid the groundwork with a mysterious signal, the virus, and the hive mind, the next step is to offer deeper exploration in terms of hints towards who is behind it, the purpose, and how the immune resist. And finally, I think we'll continue to get an expansion of the survivor group dynamics and introductions to a few new characters. In episode 2, we saw Carol interacting with other immune survivors who had varying responses, with Z, Kusameu, Laxmi, and Kumba. Episode 3 may have Carol navigating those tensions further, possibly leading to more internal conflict between them. And it's important to keep in mind that the trailers further put a focus on the character Menusos, played by Carlos Manuel Vesca, and we haven't seen his character yet. He is listed on IMDb as being a part of the grenade episode, so I think we're going to get an introduction to him. My guess is that he's the 12th immune person from Paraguay that they became aware of in episode 2, as he is seen driving a car with Paraguayan plates in the main trailer. He's also seen licking the lid of a can in that same footage, so maybe he really wants to be infected. In saying that, he might also be a central antagonist for the series, as the Hive mind can't currently hurt Carol, but maybe he could contribute to that. But they were my thoughts and predictions for Pluribus episode 3 and beyond. After how good episodes 1 and 2 were, of course the anticipation is high for more from Gilligan's new show. However, I do think there will be a good few episodes at least before we start getting some bigger answers, and for the majority of the season, I think we'll be getting a lot more questions. Gilligan is extremely smart, and I think he'll want people to be hanging around for the long run, crafting heavily bingeable episodes that keep you wanting more and more. Still, with the grenade title of episode 3 and Gordon Smith writing it, I think it will have a few big things happen. And hopefully it's an episode that, like the second one, continues to deepen the characters and all the world building. But what are your predictions and theories surrounding what happens in the next episode? Let me know down below in the comment section. For much more videos on Vince Gilligan's Pluribus, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.